You might not be working as quickly as you'd like to, and I think it's probably because you lack patience. Now that might sound counterproductive at first, so let's quote Abraham Lincoln. He said, "If I had 8 hours to cut down a tree, I'd use the first 6 to sharpen my axe." It's the idea that we should spend more time in preparation to then excel us forward than mindlessly chopping away at samples. Or words to that effect. Now lately, I've been producing some of my best work in the fastest turnaround. So today, I want to share with you some of my workflow habits. Let's dive into it. So first up, templates. I make tons of templates for different occasions, different tempos, and different methods of working, most of which are available at the Patreon, by the way. These templates allow me to jump straight into the action and get to work right away. I'm not spending any creative energy on choosing the right kick drum sample or trying to find my preferred EQ. If I'm working at 170 BPM, chances are I'm making drum and bass, so I make my template reflect the instruments and reference tracks I'm likely to use. If I want to start a project by chopping up samples, I have a template that has all of my routing laid out. And if I'm doing a mix for a client, then you better believe I have a template for that too. Now this next point is maybe the most important. I call it admin days. Now, if you've ever booked a study session with me, you've probably heard me talk about admin days before. These are the integral days where I feel like being productive, but I don't necessarily have creative energy in the tank. I call these my admin days. They're moments where I can put on a podcast or listen to some music and just try to get some textures or grooves down. I try to find new atmospherics or samples. Oftentimes, these are repetitive actions that I can do inside the DAW, but I don't necessarily need to have headphones on. What's the benefit, you may ask? Well, when you're finally back in that creative groove, you can pull these from your sample folders and it again doesn't take up any mental energy. You saw me use this quick method in the video where I made a track in just 4 minutes. I'll link in the top right if you haven't seen it yet. That's going to save you many minutes of your time, but so are racks. Racks on racks on racks on racks. I use so many effects racks, save down my default tracks, and make sure I'm mapping my chains inside instrument racks as well. This is one thing I've been going absolutely hard in lately, and I have a few examples for you. So firstly, I have a go-to effects rack. It's an audio effects rack with these 5 plugins inside. They're tools I often use on most instruments, so I save them for immediate use. Now, one step on from that, we probably all have our go-to instruments, so you should all be making use of the color collections too. Now, 9 times out of 10, after I've recorded a chord progression, I normally jump straight into recording bass. So I make very intentional use of the chain selector and the key zone editor as well. So this allows me to play 2 instruments at once. Or split the key sound. So I can go from having piano on one side of my MIDI keyboard to bass on the left-hand side of the keyboard. I made use of all of these techniques in the episode where I created a track in just 90 seconds. So before my final point of the video, I want you to pre-save your areas of repetition. We've previously spoke about track defaults and effects racks, and inside these, there are probably things that you're doing often, reducing mud in certain frequencies or adding limiters, for example. Save these things by default. Check out my EQ. My nodes on my EQ look like this by default. Why? Well, I often scoop these frequencies, boost these, and utilize roll-offs. So they're all ready to go. My routing is often similar. So each track has a limiter by default, and my routing for personal projects is as follows. Should I make a future video on what my current 2023 routing template is? Let me know in the comments. Now, I mentioned I've got one more bullet point for you, so don't go anywhere. This is something that I've only started using just this week, and it has 10x'd my workflow habits. but we just spoke about pre-saving. Now, whilst we're on the topic of pre-saving, once you've got all of your musical material down, you probably want to get it out to the masses as soon as possible. But you also want to make sure that your audience is able to pre-save your material and share it amongst their friends as well. And that's why today's sponsor, DistroKid, makes it effortless. Whether it's marketing materials, mastering your track, artwork, or if you're working with a collaborator, sharing files, making sure that the splits are taken care of so both you and your collaborators get paid on time. DistroKid has it all. And if you want 7% off your first year, then just use the link in the description below. Let's get to the final point of the video. You're going to really like this. Now, for my final point, I've previously spoken about options.txt files. And if you haven't seen that episode, I won't bore you. I'll link it in the top right. But this is something that I've never covered before. It actually wasn't on my radar until just this week. And that is the Live Enhancement Suite. Now, if you're brand new to the Live Enhancement Suite, it's essentially an extension that works for both Mac and Windows, allowing you to right-click your favorite plugins, create subfolders. You can set up a timer so it shows you how long you've worked on that particular project. So it's more like FL Studio. You can quickly clear tracks just by hitting Alt, then X when you hover over it, which is terrific when you're creating a lot of duplicate tracks like I do. And there's a ton of other options in Live Enhancement Suite too. So check it out. I'll leave it in the description below. But there we have it, guys. That's today's video, and hopefully some workflow tips, hacks, and ideas that will get you working more intentionally and quicker than ever before. I do hope that these few tips were helpful, guys, and do drop me and the community a comment down below letting us know your shortcuts and workflows for working a little bit better in your projects too. Thank you so much for stopping by, guys. Let me know what you want to see in future videos, and I'll catch you next time.